What's up, my Fishin-atics? Hey, you know what today is? It's 2 days late. It's your Tacklebox Tuesday, Thursday edition. Alright, we're going to get hooked up. I'm going to go into hooks and which types to use, why they're good, what they're good for, what species to use them on, and a little bit more. But I'm not going to talk your head off now. Gonna bore you. Let's get right into it. Check it out. Alright, like I told you before, we have a variety of hooks. Okay, we got our circle, or this is the circle hook. This is also a circle hook. This is called a straight circle. As you can see, it's not quite like it, but with the straight circle hook, it has a little more of a straight edge here and a more pronounced barb. Okay, like I said, this is a circle hook. It looks kind of like the octopus, except the octopus has the eyelet backwards. You got your J, this is kind of like midway between a J hook and a circle. You have your short shank J hook, a regular J hook, and down here, just to show, this is the typical size you see most people using. This is another short shank J hook. Here is a J hook with a more pronounced curve. This is a highlight for cat fishermen because of the way the cat's jaws are. This pronounced arc really helps it hold better. And I'm sure you all have seen these before. Treble hook works great as long as you plan on keeping the fish. And your Kale wide gap hook. Alright, let's dive into this. Alright, everybody, you guys saw the different hooks. Now what I've done is I've grouped the J hooks together. Okay, so as you know, here and here, these are your standard J hooks. Okay, I want to show a difference. This one has a barb. This one does not have a barb. Okay, these are important for two reasons. One, with the J hook, and this is first and foremost reason why not to use one, is because it does far more damage to the fish and has a significantly greater chance to gut hook them. Okay, so if you're not actively fishing, like something along the lines of, let's say, bass or crappie, or a sporting fish where you're going to be trying to set the hook, I would stay away from the J hooks. Okay, they work great for predatory fish like Spanish mackerel, tuna, speckled trout, anything with a more of a pointed mouth. Because you got to remember, when fish eat, depending on the type of fish they all eat a different way. Many of them have a pointed mouth that will go like this, and the others have that round mouth that they grab big mouthfuls of water and they just pretty much suck the fish in. Okay, so if you're not actively fishing, I would try and stay away from J hooks. If you definitely care about your environment, or you're just being a good person, and or if you don't have tags, because if you don't have tags and you gut hook one of these fish, all you're doing is killing it for no reason if you're not going to harvest it. Okay, so this, typically you aren't going to use this one without a barb unless it's like, you know, sporting pond. Like most, some communities here in Texas, they actually have catch and release ponds. So it's also really easy to remove the hook because you don't have to worry about it as you're removing it, the barb getting caught. So that's the best part about this, but obviously the worst part is not having the barb. because the fish can slip off easier. And that's the other second biggest downfall to the J-hook. They're probably the best at hook setting, or easiest, because no matter what you do, you're gonna get it. Now, you have your standard J with a separate, if you notice, the eyelet is different. It's bent in. And I forgot my other J hooks downstairs, but you guys know what they are. They go up and then have an indent, which is used for stuff like worms or creature baits, soft plastics, and the like. So, now that we got that out of the way, and this is also depends on your rigging. Each one of these eyelets, you'll notice, is at a different way. Like this one is pointed forwards towards the point, whereas this one is pointed backwards towards the point. So this is your standard J minus the barb. So that's enough of that. Now as we bring this over, you'll notice, let's move this one out of the way, we can compare these two. Let's move this out of the way. Okay? A lot of people don't know the reason for having these short shanks. Okay, because you gotta learn the parts of the hook. You have your point, your barb, and your shank. Obviously the curve. Okay, so the more it's curved, the more likely you are to keep a hold of that fish. Now, for certain fish, short shanks are good. Like ones, for instance, that don't have teeth, that are more of the gulping kind, because you don't have to worry about them biting the line. If you're searching for predatory fish, or you're in an area with a lot of predatory fish, take these out and switch to your long shank J. They do have others that are longer, but you don't always use those. And depending on the type of fish you're looking for, like let's say you're going for some wahoo or some kingfish, a lot of times what people will do is if they don't have any leader wire, or like bite-proof leaders, if you don't know, what you'll do is you'll pretty much call it triple hook it, where this doesn't have a barb, so I'll be able to remove it. You'll set it like that and then put another one here. So what happens is with those fish, they'll go and they'll either try and bite the fish in half when you're trolling, or they'll go and bite it and they'll bite off your line. So that's why you do something like this. And it also increases the likelihood of catching the fish. So now that we've got these 4 out of the way, okay, we see this nice little pattern I got going. So we got our short shanks. We have our long shanks. Not to be confused with the King of England, or if you guys saw, sorry, that was a Braveheart reference. Love that movie. So we've talked about these. Okay, they're great for hook setting. However, like I said, they do have major drawbacks when it comes to fish welfare and management, as well as this is the easiest way to lose a fish, because all it has to do is shake its head real good. It shakes, boom, it's out of its mouth. Or they'll spit it out, or something like that. Or if you have one of those fish that likes to jump a lot and do a head shake like a tarpon or marlin or something like that. So knock these out of the way. So we have these other types of J type hooks. Okay, so if you'll notice with this one, the tip is more pronounced, or the curve right here from the point around the barb, so it's more of a curve in comparison to your standard J. If you look at it side by side, you'll notice you could even put it on top of each other. So if I put the shanks right next to each other, you'll see how this one goes and points in. So what that's going to do is that's just going to allow you that much more room to keep your fish on the hook. Okay, so that's pretty much that. A lot of people will think something like this is a octopus hook. Okay, it is not. The octopus hook is a more of a figure eight. So what it does, it'll have a more pronounced curve or arch in the hook, but the eyelet right here will be going backwards, kind of like this one, and you'll be good from there. That's the octopus hook, but this is just a J hook with a more pronounced arc or arch. Now here, this, I really like this if I'm going to use J hooks, because with these, the bends, with each bend you have a greater chance of keeping the fish on, and especially with this point right here, it is more of a pointed arch, so as the fish lip bites on, it has a lot less room to, like with the arch, to curve around, and it gets caught right up here a lot better, as opposed to your standard J, which you could just loop right around off. Okay, so you'll have these ones that are bent like this, and as you can see, the eyelet is still in line with the point and the barb, just like this one is. A lot of people don't notice that. They'll think that the eyelet's pointed back, but if you look, it's straight up and down. So the way the hook is meant to sit is like this. So that way when the fish gets it, they bite and it loops around. These hooks are a favorite of catfish fishermen, because with the type of mouth that catfish are, they have those sucker mouths, so it just kind of, they suck it in and then it goes boop around here. That's right, I said boop. And then they get caught on it a lot easier, and the line stays tight. So if you look at it, with the line staying tight, if you imagine the line going straight, the fish is going to be stuck on this very pronounced arch, and it'll be a lot harder to shake off. Alright, so we got these knocked out of the way. Let's go into treble hooks. Okay, these are used for fish that typically, if you're gonna like leave dead bait on the bottom or something like that, a lot of catfish fishermen will use them, except you'll see like a little spongy part around here, or possibly a like a coil, which you can put like stink bait, or you know, or a dipping type of bait on them. These are also really good for fish like sheep's head, which have those human-like teeth. So, which I do have a sheephead catch, clean, cook coming up, so check it out. Right here you have your same points of any hook. You got your point, you got your arc, or your barb, your arch, the shank, and the eyelet. Okay, so these are great for especially when you're doing some sort of like fish with small, like I said, smaller mouths, because it increases the likelihood they're going to bite. And also you'll notice that these are the hooks that you're going to see more on active baits like crankbaits or topwater baits, poppers, and definitely you'll always see them on the back of spoons, because it's meant for the fish to go and gulp it in, and then you set your hook in all three. And I do have a picture which I can flash up here real quick. I caught a ladyfish on a, let's say, a phallus shaped or lure. I got for just for fun purposes, just to see what if it would work, and sure enough, the ladyfish loved it, and it got all 3 points through the mouth, so it couldn't even open its mouth, and it was going to maintain the hook set. Okay, the drawback to these is just like the J's. If a fish guts it, you are going to have a heck of a time trying to get it out. But like I said, they're good for fish that have smaller mouths and like to go and take little pecks and just like kind of like bite and run away, stuff like that. And the other drawback with these is, once you get a bend in them, that side of the hook is worthless, and a lot of these hooks are made from a softer metal compared to your standard J's, so they will bend and or break easier. And the last probably drawback would be, fish that like to go peck and hit away, you have more chance of like hooking them, snagging them on their body, or I see a lot of these go into the eyes of the fish. So let's knock these out of the way. Like I said, they're good for those fish that like to gulp it in real quick. Now, if we are back on the J hook topic, this is called a Kale. It's spelled K-A-H-L-E. So, and it's a wide gap hook. There's also other hooks, like J hooks, that have a more pronounced, or it's called a wide gap. So the gap is from the point to the shank. Okay, that's what's gonna be your wide gap. So your standard, it's your wide. You can see it's, even though it's a smaller size hook by a lot, the gap is still even wider. Okay, now these are like a really good favorite hook of mine, because even though it's a bigger size hook, you can still hook smaller fish, so you don't always have to downgrade your tackle. Okay, so yeah, let's go into this a little bit more. Now, these do come offset a bit, as you can see. If I turn it, this is the way they come. This is a legal offset. Check your local areas. Make sure you're with your fishing licenses and stuff like that. Your state regulations, because some states it is illegal to use offset hooks. Alright, so got that in order. And so even though it's a wider gap here, it will still allow the fish to go and bite, because the way the bait will be is you'll hook it on and it'll sit right here. So I'm going to bring it a little closer so you guys can have a better view. So if it is vertical, okay, the fish can bite, hook on, and it has a much more pronounced arch and a point right here on the side. Okay, so that is a more favorite of mine because it's closer to the circle hook, so it involves more of a hook set, and it's a greater welfare to your fish, and they also offset these a bit to protect the fish. Now let's go into circle hooks. Okay, so here are our circle hooks. These are the two types that I use. I try to stick with this one a little more, just because it's hard metal forged. It's a heck of a lot less likely to bend, and it has a greater chance of keeping your fish on. Okay, so you got your standard circle hook right here, which if you know how to use one, great. If not, check it out and listen. And this is it's called a straight circle hook, because if you notice by the arches, there is a more pronounced, more of a peak, if you will, or a point to the circle, up around here and up here, and there's a greater gap and a more pronounced arch. It's very, very slight, but it does make a significant difference. Okay, so what circle hooks are used for is obviously fish welfare. These are the safest type for the fish, because once a fish gets it, you'll feel it pulling, and then when you pull it to set it, what's going to happen is after the fish takes the bait that's on here, sitting on the arch, going to grab it with its mouth like so, and as it turns away, what's going to happen is it's going to set the hook in its mouth itself, or it may be in its mouth as it's sitting there eating, chomp, chomp, chomp. And so you'll feel it pulling, and that's when you pull and set the hook. So what it does is, let's use a straight hook for a reference to the fish's mouth. So let's say the shank is the fish's mouth. The hook's in here, you can feel it tightening. So what happens is, if it pulls away, it'll set the hook itself unless you set it for it. So that's why this bend is here. So it's not going to go straight into the fish. And also, when the fish bites it, it's not going to feel that poke, okay? Because I also mention it in my catch, clean, and cook for the sheep's head, with their defense mechanisms, and majority of fish have that large fin on their back with points. What they do is, when they sense a predator in the area, those barbs just go straight up, and it deters the predators because they see those spikes and they don't want to get a mouthful of points and spikes and have a painful dinner. They're going to go for the easiest prey. Okay, so that's how you'll see them then. So what happens is, the fish bites down, boop, you feel it, it'll either turn away or you'll set the hook. So what happens is, as you set it or the fish turns away, this arch right here goes against and then comes through like so, and then the point goes in and then hooks the fish. So with this right here, being it's a straight circle, and I'll put them side by side and you'll be able to tell the difference. Just look closely, because the more pronounced arch instead of a complete bend or a more circular bend, this part right here will keep on the fish's mouth. And typically what it does, like I said, is for fish welfare. If it works perfectly, it hooks them in the corner of the jaw, in the side of the mouth, or the bottom of the jaw, or maybe even the top of the roof of the mouth. Okay, so that way it's significant. It's very rare for a fish to gut these hooks because of the way they're designed. So, one, great for fish welfare. Two, makes it way easier to unhook a fish, and especially with gut hooking and something like that. Okay, that's also why the barbs on these are more pronounced. And if you watch our videos, you'll see guys kind of pounding it. So what it does is it just pound. They kind of hit it with their fist. So if you could pretend it's through his lip, what you do is you pound it and it goes boop, like that, out of the fish's mouth. Okay, the only downside is the barb at the hook. Okay, so like I said, ooh, easy there, almost lost it. Now, this is I think this is a 16-aught, and this one is an 18-aught. Right now, I'm going to show you the 15, okay? Or, if you got kids like me, baby shark, mommy shark, daddy shark. Okay, so with the leader and the way this hook set is, I'm going to show you. Only downfall is you have to look at my ugly bug. So let's check it out. Alright guys, so like I just said, I'm going to show you how the leader works, and the reason why I do prefer the circle hook, because like I said, fish welfare, and not only is it better for the fish, but it's better for the angler too, because with those circle hooks, you get to maintain your hook set so much better, and it's also a lot easier to get out. So if you guys watched the how to make your own surf leader or bottom fishing leader, you'll know what I have right now in my hands. If not, check it out. and go back to that video. I'll throw the link for that video in the description, so in case there's any questions or what I'm talking about and how it's used, because I probably should have gone over that in that video, but you know, here in Texas along the south side of the state, this is a lot of what we use. So to me it comes as common. To others it may not be so, but that was brought up to me, so I'm going to work on that. So thank you for the constructive criticism, because I want to make this channel for fishermen by fishermen. So alright, so here we have the leader that we made before. Okay, so parts of the leader obviously is your hook, which is a little 15-aught straight circle. You have your leader line. This is a 140-pound test fluorocarbon, and then I have it crimped on, not tied. I have your crimp in the middle, and you have your bait, your beads. You have your snap swivel for the weight, and you have your other beads, your other crimp, and this is a 800-pound 400-pound circle, or just regular barrel swivel. So what you do, obviously, you know, this goes to the main line. I was asked why we have beads on it. Is it for decoration? No, it's not. These beads are actually spacers. Okay, so from this crimp to this crimp, you have all this line, and you can see it spinning, the snap swivel. So you can put as many beads on whatever side you want. Spell something, like my son spelled spinner shark on this one. So what this does is you cast it out, and what's going to happen is the weight is going to be on here, and it's going to sink into the sand. So then what you do is, once you feel it sink into the sand, you tighten your line. So what it does is it goes to and sits here, and as soon as your line gets tight, you put your drag on, or your clicker, what have you, or free spool, and you wait. That's all you got to do. Because what happens here is, one, these beads act as a buffer, kind of like washers or so when you're using nuts and bolts. So you definitely want to have a couple, because they do break, they do get old, they do wear off. So what it does is, you see this large eyelet on this. You don't want it to go over this, because then it's just going to go over it, and it's going to go all the way down to the end of the hook. But it will stop at this eyelet. So what you do is, it's kind of like a snare, almost like a fish snare. So as you tighten it, the line, you got your other beads on this side. The main line stays down, so it's kind of tight. Whether which angle you're at, it doesn't really matter. So, but more so, it's at an angle to where your drag hits. Now, as the fish goes, and it sees your bait floating in the water, because your sinker, or your weight, whatever you call it, is sitting here. So this is why I use a little bit, maybe about 2 foot, so it gives it room to, one, get away from the sinker, and it gives it a chance to float higher in the current. So it's increased visibility for the fish, even though it's more so maybe scent, but so it's more off the bottom from just straight bottom feeders. Okay, so that being said, it's going to be floating in the current, and then as it, oops, my bad, no such thing as a perfect world. So as this sits here, the fish is floating in the water, blah blah blah, it bites it and it pulls, and then, like I said, it's a snare, so this is sitting in the dirt. As it goes, it'll pull, and you'll start to hear your drag. Let it go for a second, because what it's going to do is it's going to go bam right here, and these beads are going to help set the hook. So as it goes boop, like that, and then it will unseat itself. So what it does is, here, once it hits the other
crimp these beads, and the snap swivel will go hit and it'll tighten. Okay, so what that does is once it stops at this end, what happens over here? Fish has it in its mouth like this, blah 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 blah, and then it turns, and as you can watch with my hand, yes, I'm risking self-harm. So it's in the fish's mouth, right? And as it pulls, it stops and goes bam, ow, 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 ow. As you can see, right into my hand. That's what the circle hook does. And that's why I use this type of leader, because it's a lot easier for the fish. You don't got to worry about them gut hooking nearly as much, because when fish feed, you have to remember, and that's also another important decision when you are choosing your hooks, how the fish feed, what the target species is, and what kind of bait you're using. Because the ones that I'm targeting are, I've heard them called gulpers. So what they do is they go sit there, they're going, the fish goes, sees the bait, just like any other fish. They don't sit there, well, majority of fish don't sit there. I will say gar, they will sit there and chew their food. But a majority of other fish will go see it and suck it in, or bite it in half and wound, disable, or kill it, and then they'll go back for the rest. Or you have these ones like the redfish you see me, black drum, grouper, any of those other fish with the more round type mouths. They're more of a gulping fish. Snapper as well, but they're kind of hit or miss, like the red snapper, not vermilion. Vermilion have the small circular mouth, but they'll suck it in and then run away. Just boop. So they move fast. Just like you don't know the guy next to you is going to sucker punch you. You're just walking along, then bam. Okay, same thing. They do the same thing because they're living around each other all the time. So they go and then boop, hits it. It goes here. So that's one of the major things you're going to need to keep in the back of your mind when you are choosing your tools. Like I said, if you're actively fishing, and you know, like bass fishermen, you'll always see them. They will always have a good J hook, but it will have that bend in it. So they're typically using worms or creature baits of some sort, stuff like that. So they're constantly reeling, tugging, using crankbaits or something like that. So that's a lot of that. That is pretty much old school. I mean, this is the bottom line oldest type of hook that is imaginable, except, you know, that was metal, not made of bone or stone or wood. If you go back in time, you look, it's pretty much it's either a very hard type of wood from a tree that's carved into somewhat of an arch, or a U or a V shape to where it stays hooked. Actually, the ancient the Inuits, they actually have a really cool way to have the hook, because there's a certain thing to where if they didn't want the fish to be too big, so they had a little stopper. I'll have to check that out and research it later on. Maybe I'll do a little video, or just one of my shorts. I'll do a quick little tutelage on that. But nonetheless, you have your J's. You have a more pronounced J. So if you're going to use one, try and use something with a little more of a curve. Okay, it's gonna suit you, and it's gonna suit the fish better. So you'll want to use the long shanks with fish that have teeth, because if you're using the short shank like this, or like the other one that is lost somewhere around me, and I'm gonna find it later in my foot, which will probably end up on another day of the life of a Fishin-atics. But you have your short ones for fish without like teeth, so like I said, the gulpers or something like that. You got your long ones for fish with teeth, and you got your circle hooks for actively setting fish. You have your treble hooks for smaller fish with smaller mouths, or fish that like to peck at stuff like that, and obviously spoon usage. Well, that's it for me today. I really hope that you did get something out of this. and that this is one more thing you can put in the back of your head, toolbox. Like I said, if you guys want anything, want to see, want to learn, don't be afraid to drop a comment. If you're afraid to drop a comment, shoot me an email on the link below. It has my Instagram, it has my Facebook, all other stuff. I will be happy to answer your questions. Just because I've been fishing since I could walk doesn't mean I know everything. I'm always looking, I'm always listening, I'm always learning. I mean, you're never going to know everything about fishing. So if you see something different that I do, please drop me a line. You don't have to give everybody your secret, but I'm always down to learn, and I want to also help everyone and help teach at the same time. Okay, so that about wraps it up, y'all. So you know what to do in the meantime. Take these and always have an array, okay? Always have a different, let's say, arsenal, if you will. Have a couple of everything, you know, depending on what's working, what's not. And, you know, you may change environments, you may change target species, you see what's biting, what's hitting. You know, always have it's better to need and not have, or sorry, it's better to have and not need than need not have. Old Army adage, what I learned. So that wraps it up for me. Sorry, caveat, it's late, and I wish you all the best. Thank you again so much for watching, subscribing. It's really, you know, make sure to share this with your friends. Drop a like. If you haven't subscribed already, do so. If we are lucky enough to get monetized, and I hope I look back, but my future me looks back and says, man, this was a good video. If we're lucky enough to get monetized, everything's going for Junior and his fishing company later on. So, until next time, keep them lines tight, them bras bent. We out.